Okay, so in the first session, if you remember, we have again started with the concept of operating system, where we have seen the functions and then we understood about the multi-program system. Then we have seen what are the protected objects, and now we are going to see what are the security functions of operating system. Now, as I said, when we speak about the security functions, you have separation, you have a memory protection. But then now, first I'm going to start with the first one, that is on separation. So let me just start with the same. Okay, so we are going to start with the first one, which speaks about now the security functions of operating system. So when we are going to start with the first one, that is on the separation, what does separation mean? So whenever I say separation, separation means to keep one user object separate from other users, right? So separation is nothing but keeping one user object separate from other users. So we want to have such scenario where we somehow keep one user's objects separate from other users, because we have seen, because of the protected object that we have seen in the previous slide, we want to make sure that we want to keep one user object separate from other users, because there are certain objects we want to have it that way. So what are the different methods of separation we are going to see it? So coming back to the methods of separation, there are first one is the physical separation. Now, when we speak about the methods of separation, there are four methods of separation. First one, that is physical. Second is temporal. Third one is logical, and fourth one is cryptographic. I'll repeat: physical, temporal, logical, and cryptographic. So we are going to see there are four methods of separation, and each one of them in detail. Before that, those who have joined, please update your details in the chat box. Uh, that will require it for taking your attendance. So please enter the details there. Now, when we speak about the methods of separation, we are going to start with the first one, which is called as a physical separation. Now, what is a physical separation? Physical separation is nothing but keeping different hardware units for different users. Now, when I say keeping different hardware units for different users, so for example, if you have, let's take an example during your exam submission, during your file submission, during the submission time, what you do is you require multiple printers. You can just wait for one printer, otherwise it's going to take a lot of time. So what you want is you want your that you should have your program that is connected to multiple printers, so that for multiple users during submission, so that your printouts can be taken faster. Okay, so you want each of your programs should go to the different printers, and the printers, different printers should print your document faster. So that can be a physical separation. So what is physical separation? Physical separation is a separation by which different processes use different physical objects, such as separate printers for output, requiring different levels of security. Clear? So physical separation is nothing but how you keep different hardware units for different users. And you somehow require this kind of a separation, because you cannot just wait for one printer to have for multiple users. So if you want to have multiple printers for multiple users, you want to have such kind of a separation, and that we called as a physical separation, right? So so your program should go with multiple printers, and multiple printers should print your documents from the multiple users, so that the printing of all the users can be taken place quickly. This was easy to understand. Let us see the second type. Second type of separation is called as a temporal separation. What is temporal separation? Temporal separation means it is using a particular users for a particular resource for particular amount of time. Okay, what is temporal separation? Temporal separation is something where time factor comes into picture. So it is a separation where we use a particular resource for particular amount of time. For example, say for example, I want to access a resource for 30 minutes. Okay. So I will say if I want to access the resource for 30 minutes, so this 30 minute is my time slice, or I can say time quantum. So I'll be using this resource for 30 minutes, uh, and then after 30 minutes, other user will replace me. So if you can see here, for example, there is only one printer. So what I'll do, I will have a temporal separation where my separation will not be based on the resources, that is a physical separation, but here my separation will be based on time. It means I'll have a resource time of 30 minutes. In that 30 minutes, I'm supposed to use that resource, and after 30 minutes, the other user will replace me. So here, if you can see, resource is fixed, there is nothing changed in the resource, but a time slice is used, which uh, which gives a particular resource to a particular user. Okay, so this is a temporal separation. So as you can see, temporal separation is something by which processes having different security requirements are executed at different times. Clear so far, physical and temporal? Now, once you have understood, we can go towards the next two type, which is logical and cryptographic. So, have you cleared with two types of separation? One is the physical separation, and second is the temporal separation. First one is a physical resource where you separate with the help of physical objects, and second separation you do it with the help of time factor, where resources is same but you have a time slice. I hope it should be clear so far. Okay, thank you, Saurabh. Now, since you have understood both the type, the next type, third one, is called as a logical separation. Let me just go to the next slide. Okay. Now, when we say a logical separation means it is creating a logical unit of virtual units of physical items. So when I say it is a logical separation, it here you create the logical units, or I can say you create a virtual units of physical items. So to give me an example, I'll say, for example, you have four operating system you're running inside a particular OS. Now, is it possible to run four operating system in a single operating system? Yes, it is possible, right? Using you might have run a VMware or virtualization, where it is possible where you run multiple operating system together inside a single operating system. So there, if you know, there is a concept called as a guest operating system and a host operating system. So you have one operating system which is called as the host operating system. Then you run multiple operating system which is called as guest operating system on top of it. So we know there is a concept and where you can run. So this is a logical separation. So logical separation is something where you create the logical units, or I can say virtual units of the physical item. Physical item is the same. There is no change in it, but then you are actually creating a logical unit so that you can run multiple units in it. So as I said, example, if you use four operating systems simultaneously inside a particular OS, you can say that separation is done with the help of a logical. So for example, if I have my machine which is running a master OS, that is Windows 10, and inside it, that is what it is running. And on top of it, if I use three or four different virtual OS, maybe I say a Kali Linux, or maybe on other operating system, maybe a Ubuntu. So what I have done here is, here I have done a physical unit, which is only one, but then I have created multiple virtual units of that physical unit, and that what I have distributed with the multiple users. So that we called it as a logical separation. And let us see what is the fourth type of separation. The fourth one is called as a cryptographic separation. Now, a cryptographic separation, okay, before cryptographic separation, let us read what is mentioned on this slide. What it says as per the reference book is concerned. Now, whatever topic I am taking, probably the operating system security, I have used the book of Security in Computing, which is by Charles Flieger. So if you want to have it further look, or if you want to read more on it, you always can go and refer the book of Charles Flieger. It's very good book. I'll suggest, if you have time, just go and open the book and read it. You'll really start loving it, because uh, they have actually explained the topic in a very layman terms. So even anyone who just opens the book and if they start reading it, it'll be easy for them to understand. So I'll suggest that if you have time, you can just go once. You'll find the same topic there, right? Okay. So as it is mentioned in the book, logical separation is something by which user operate under the illusion that no other processes exist, as and when operating system constrain a program's access so that the program cannot access objects outside its permitted domain. So that is what I have tried to explain in a simpler terms. Now let us understand and go to the fourth type of separation, which we called it as a cryptographic separation. Now what is a cryptographic separation? A cryptographic separation is something by which processes conceal their data and computation in such a way that they are unintelligible to outside processes. I'll just read it again. It is a separation by which the processor conceal their data and computation in such a way that they are unintelligible to outside processes. Anyone who could make out by reading this what is a cryptographic separation? Anyone who could just make out what is a cryptographic separation? If not, I'll explain in a simpler terms if you do not understand. Anyone like to try? I hope all of us do know what is the concept of cryptography. Now, how the cryptographic separation works? Yes, Gokul, it is information hiding. Correct. That is true. But what it's trying to say? You are very correct. It is information hiding. That is working on the secrecy that we already know, confidentiality. No, when I'm saying we are working on the cryptographic, what we are actually trying to say is that here, I'll just explain in the simpler terms. So when I say a cryptographic separation, it means here one user is separated from other users in a form of cryptography. Now, how one user is separated from other user in a form of cryptography? Because as we know, we want to have a confidentiality, right? We do not want any user is actually accessing the data of any other users. So what we do is, yes, very good. Yes, Ajay, you're correct. It cannot be understood by other process. Yes. So we want to have a separation where we do not want that other unintended user should access the data. So as rightly said by Sajjad, we do not want that the other process should able to understand what is trying to communicate. So that is called as a cryptographic separation. So it is a form of separation where one user is separated with other user in a form of cryptography. When I say in a form of cryptography, I mean that so that other unintended user should not access it. So that we mean by a cryptographic separation. So these are the four methods in which we can separate uh, and this is how we can protect it. So we have seen a physical, then we went towards temporal, then we went towards logical, and we went towards cryptography. Any doubt in this? If not, then we'll start with the protection. That is the memory and address protection. Any doubt as of this methods of separation is concerned? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, Sajjad. So now, thank you, Gokul. Now, I hope since you have understood the methods of separation, let us try and understand something called as a memory and address protection. Now, we are going towards the next topic where we are going to see for the protection is the memory and address protection. Now, whenever we are going to speak about the memory and address protection, we are going to speak about these five techniques, or I can say these are the five concepts for your memory and address protection. Now, in memory and address protection, there are five different concepts. First one is the fence, then you have relocation, you have base and bound register, you have a concept of segmentation, and you have concept of paging, right? So we'll have these are the different methods in which you have a memory and address protection. Now, we are going to see each one of them in detail, but then whenever we are going to speak on memory and address protection, we are going to speak on these five topics. That is the fence, relocation, base bound register, segmentation, and paging. Already, it is not possible to cover all five of them in detail together, but then this will be a part of your OS security where we are going to speak on it. Okay. So once we understand all these five topics, then we are done with an OS security as well, right? So let us do that. Okay. So uh, first one we are going to start with is called as a fence. Anyone who know what do you mean by fence? Before I start with why we have a fence? We have fence everywhere. We have a fence outside our college. We have our fence in our society. Why we have a fence? Yes, yes, to limit. Correct. Now we want to have a limit. Yes, very good, Ashish. We want a protection from external unwanted bodies. Yes, you do not want any external users or anyone who is not intended should actually be there inside it. So you protect somehow. So that is where we make use of a fence. So a fence is, I can say, what is a fence? A fence is nothing but the boundary. I can say it is a boundary, or I can say a boundary wall which keeps our resources secure. Okay, so it's the boundary or the boundary wall which keeps the resources secure at our side of the boundary. Okay, so we have a fence, so we are sure that we are secure at our side of the boundary. If you see in our society also, or where we stay, we normally have a fence there. Why? We do not want any users who is not belonging to our society should enter into our society. If he want to enter, he need to come to a main gate, and then only he can enter there, right? So we want to protect our resources. Similarly, if you can say in the college as well, there will be a one entry point, and otherwise it will be a fence everywhere, so that a big wall or a boundary wall, I can say, to protect or to keep ourselves secure from our side of the boundary. So that is called as a fence. Now, whenever we say about a fence, we want to make sure we want to secure our resources, and that is the reason we have a boundary or a fence around the resources. So, a fence is defined as a fixed memory address, and we restrict our actual users between the operating system and the user program space. Uh, so, if you can see from this figure, can you all tell me where is the fence and what is the use of the fence? If you can try to understand, just see at the figure what is been trying to explain. So here again the fence is trying to confine or restrict the users to one side of the boundary. Can anyone make the guess? Here also we are making the use of the first type, that is the fence. Now where is this fence? If anyone of you from the figure can tell me what is the fence and how it is protecting. Any answer? From the figure, can you just see where is the fence? Where is the fence and how it is protecting? At nth location. Yes, very good. So if you can see at nth location, you have a fence there, which the name is hardware address limitation. Can you see this name? The name is mentioned, it's hardware address limitation. So what the hardware address limitation is doing is it is protecting your memory, that is the operating system, with the user program space. So if you can see from the figure, you have an hardware protection of the memory. So you have a fence here. If you see a fence here, you have an hardware address limitation, and in this hardware address limitation, you can see the address is from 0 to nth, and the user program space is running from n plus 1 to high. So you have a concept of a fence which is called as a hardware limitation, which is protecting your operating system user program space, and it is protecting your user program space to the operating system, so that they both should not interfere with each other. Okay, so because of this, none of the user program will interfere with operating system. So whatever program it is running in the user program space will not be able to interfere with the operating system, and those which is running in the operating system will not be able to interfere with the user program space. So very good concept. You can see you have an hardware address limitation which is actually which is giving an address from 0 to nth for operating system, and anything above n, uh, anything about n right from 1 minute. Yeah. So anything right from n plus 1 to the high belongings to user address space. Very good concept, right? So here, if you can see, everything is very good. But then it is called as version 1. If you can see on the top, I have written version 1, hardware protection of memory. Then obviously there might be some problems. That is the reason we are going with version 2. Now, what do you think? Is everything correct in this, or there will be some problem because of this? Now, before we see what is the drawback, let us first understand what is the advantages because of the hardware address limitation. Now, speaking on the advantage about the hardware address limitation, what is the advantage? What is the advantage? Anyone who could make out? I've already said. What is the advantage? Let us speak on the advantage first, and then we'll proceed towards understanding what is the drawback. What is the advantage because of the hardware address limitation? The advantage will be none of the user program will be able to interfere with the OS, and none of the OS will be able to, none of the function in the OS will be hampering or disturbing your user program space. So that means, if you remember, it is actually avoiding one kind of an error, or I can say one kind of uh, an error. Can you remember what I'm trying to explain you? We have studied one kind of a technique or one kind of an attack, which is actually this concept is actually avoiding. Here it is trying to overcome the problem of buffer overflow. If you remember, yes. So obviously yes, because it is actually, if you have seen, if we went back to the buffer overflow, we have seen that how buffer flow actually if it flows to the next location, and if it actually corrupts your the operating system, your system will come down, right? But here there is not a problem, because your user program space is again you have a limitation that user program will not be able to run in the operating system space. So memory address will not be given to the operating system, and because of that, yes, you might have a buffer overflow which will be on the user program or on the user data, but then the buffer overflow will not happen on the operating system. It means your operating system will never come down. Obviously, there will be a problem that if it spills your data on a user program, your program will not work, or if it spills on the user data, your data will get corrupt. So that will be a problem for sure. But then it will somehow try to protect the problem of you can say spilling it over the operating system. So that is a bigger advantage. Now let us speak on the drawback. What is the drawback of this? And a drawback because of the hardware address limitation, if you can make out with this kind of a model. No one? Okay, okay, no problem. I'll explain. Now, when we speak about the drawback, now what is the drawback do we feel here? Now, speaking on to the drawback is concerned, the drawback is, what if the user program space runs out of memory? If you can see, there are some location that is from n plus 1 to high is dedicated to user program space. Very good, very fine. You have the hardware address limit, which is actually dividing your memory into the operating system and the user program space. That is fine. Your hardware address limitation is dividing into operating system and user program space. Correct. But what if the user program space runs out of memory? And as we know, when we speak about the memory is not an infinite. Even we try to speak that memory is an infinite, but always we know the fact that memory is finite. So what if my user program space runs out of a memory? So in this case, if my user program space that will run out of memory, then this model will not work. And that is the reason we are moving on towards the version 2 of the fence register, right? That is Here you had a fixed hardware address limit, which was not actually allowing to move the slider up or down. There was a fixed address right for the operating system and right for the user program space. But next one, if you can see, is called as a variable fence. Now, this image is what we have already seen. First image that we have already seen, that was with the help of fixed fence, where we had an hardware address limit which was going from 0 to nth location, from n plus 1 to high. So this is the same version 1, if you can see, operating system version 1. And this is what I'm trying to explain. This is called as a variable fence mechanism. What is the difference between this figure and this figure, if you can make out? Dynamic memory size, correct. So you have a dynamic memory size, that is what I was looking for. Apart from this, if you can see here, there is one more difference. You might have not seen very correctly. There is one more difference. Here you have written n plus 1 and n. This here you have written p plus 1 and p. I was expecting that you would be speaking this, but I know my students are very smart. So they will not say this difference. Sir, here it is written as 0 to p. Here it was written as 0 to n. Here it is written n plus 1 to n. Here it is written p plus 1 to high. This is what I was expecting, but I'm very happy that thank you, Google. So this is what I was not expecting, but then you have answered very correctly. That is the dynamic memory size. That's what I was looking with, right? Yeah. Now, instead of n, they have denoted with the character p, which is called as a pointer, right? So they have used a character p, but then the difference between here and the previous is here it is using a dynamic. Very good. So now you have a dynamic memory size, and because it is dynamic, you can move the slider up and down. Okay. So here with version 2 variable fence register, it allows for the boundary to change. So for example, if the operating system requires less space, then pointer can be moved. Okay. If for example, if it finds out that the operating system requires only some space, then what it will do? It will move the slider up, and it will give much more portion to the user program space. But then if the user program space requires, if the OS requires more, then it will be given to user program space. Now I have one question. It's a dynamic memory size, very good. What if my OS requires more space than the given assigned space from 0 to p? So 0 to p, if you can see here, is assigned to OS, and p plus 1 to high is assigned to user program space. But then what if my OS requires more space, and also my user program space requires more space? So who will be given first preference, to the OS or to the user program? If the OS requires less space, no problem. Then the remaining portion can be given to the user program space. Very good. But what if both of them requires more? Then who will be given preference, or it will be random? Anyone? Can it be equal? Okay. Okay, Google. Yes, it can be equal. That is true. Anyone has any other answer? Okay, no problem. So actually, if the OS requires less space and the pointer can be moved, that we all of us know. But then here, first OS checks for the space required by the OS. So OS is checked first. How much space is required for the OS? Because that is what that is required always. So OS first checks for the space that is required for the OS, and then it allocates the remaining free space to the user program space. So it is not that both of them can be given equal, because you want your operating system to be loaded first. and to run it successfully, it will have to have that much amount of space in the memory. So here OS will first check for what is the space required for the OS, and depending on that, your address limit register will actually set that location, and remaining, if the OS comes to know that it is not going to have a requirement of further memory space, then it will allocate that amount of space into the user program space. So yes, the variable fence register, that is the version 2, actually overcomes the problem of version 1, which was a fixed fence, while variable 2, or the version 2 I can say, is based on the variable fence. It tries to overcome the problem by actually moving the pointer, or I can say, if the OS requires less space, then the pointer is moved and remaining space is given back to the user program space for running it. Clear? So this is how it actually tries to protect. Any doubt in this? If no, then we are going to start with the next type, which is on the base bound register. And then we'll end the lecture. Meanwhile, I expect that all of you might have entered the details there, your UIN number, your name, and the rule number. Okay. So let us go. I think you do not have any doubt. Let us go to the next type, which is now called as a base bound register. Now, what difference do you find here in case of base bound register? Just look at the figure and then tell me what is the difference. Yes, yes, correct. User space itself is divided. Very good, Gokul. So user space here is divided. Now, because user space is divided, you can have accommodate multiple user into a single memory program space. So here you can have multiple program for multiple users to accommodate here, which is possible in case of a base bound register. And to protect one user from another user, you have a concept of a base register and a bound register. So base register and a bound register, we are going to see what is the difference. But before that, it helps you to relocate or to move. So now what actually happens is, what actually in the real sense happens is, uh, whenever we start the program, we assume that it always start at zeroth location or the address 0. But it does not happen always, right? We cannot make a guarantee that all our program will start from location 0. And because we do not know where exactly it gets loaded into the memory, memory is divided into frames. Now, what is this frames? Why the memory is divided into frames? Then why secondary memory has lot of pages? So we'll see probably when we are going to see the concept of paging. In paging, we're going to see this in further in detail. How paging plays a very important role here by dividing your memory into multiple frames. That is your main memory, and then how you divide your processes that you have probably in your secondary memory into pages. That we are going to see in the concept of paging and the segmentation, obviously. But then we do it, right? We do it because we know that where our program is going to be loaded is not sure. So because of that, a base bound register plays a very important role. So if you can see, my user address space is divided into multiple users, user A, user B, user C, and then these are protected by a base register and a bound register, right? So I think it's again a bigger concept about a base bound register. After this, again, we have a two pair of base bound registers. So we are going to see it again next time when we are going to meet probably tomorrow, where we are going to again see how base bound register works, what the base register and bound registers do. That is, it shows you the location, and what is again a base register bound registers use that, and how it limits the one user from another user. That we are going to say it. But in short, when we speak about a base bound register, it protects your user A program space from user B program space, user B program space from user C program space. So you have a base and bound registers that actually tries to protect the program in one user's program space into other user program space. Okay. So we'll have less than 1 minute left. We'll stop it here. Probably next time when we'll meet again, that is tomorrow, we are going to discuss further on it. I hope you all have entered the details in the chat box. We have less than a minute left. Anyone who have not entered details are requested to do it very quickly. Okay. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you